Hello and welcome to the Centre for Creative Health in Conversation series. This series highlights members of the community who assist CCH in presenting our arts and health programs and allows us to focus on some of the amazing work these professionals do. My name is Fiona Borthwick and today we're speaking with artist and all-round wonderful human Cassie Thring. Hi Cassie.
Hey Fee.
So I'll just jump into it and ask the first question. Did you always want to be an artist and how did you get started?
Yes, thanks so much for asking me to chat with you today. It's lovely and weird to be here. Yeah, I think I always wanted to be an artist, like a lot of artists. You know, when I was a kid, I was just constantly getting any box that was being thrown out and making it into something, and cutting and pasting and drawing, but very much a maker, yeah, from the beginning.
Fantastic. So your practice moves across a number of disciplines and mediums, exploring different ways of making. You just mentioned that making was from the beginning an important aspect, but how important is the process of making in your practice?
I think it's paramount for me. You know, it's like setting off on an adventure when I start. You don't really know where it's going to go, and I think because early on I started in ceramics and I was living, you know, a full-time mother, living in quite a remote area, and all of my work was self-taught. So, you know, as far as process goes, it was a very, very bumpy road, but a very satisfying road when something turned out. So I've always used that strategy and trusted my intuition and accepted the failures along the way.
Yeah, well, failures probably kind of sometimes work towards some of the most successful outcomes anyway, I suppose. I know all the times I've tried to create something and all the dead ends I've kind of guided me in the right direction and I've built from different bits and pieces. So I guess that's probably very similar to what you're talking about there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the exciting bit when you do go down a side road or discover something that you had no idea you could do, or you know, sometimes when blue and yellow don't make green, you're like, really, that's amazing. How did I not know this? So it's great, all those discoveries, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So you are an advocate for art programs in aged care and community workshops. How does your work around these programs influence your practice?
Well, of course, I feel like everything influences my practice, but having the privilege of working with in aged care and, you know, at pom-pom from, you know, the age of 3 or 4 right up to 97, it just constantly inspires me. You know, their marks, their generosity and open hearts, the way their endeavour. I think it makes you really feel brave yourself when you're making to remember those things.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2019, so just last year, you undertook a SALA residency for the Centre for Creative Health at the Hampstead Rehabilitation Centre, where you facilitated art workshops with patients there. Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful to the Centre for Creative Health for allowing me to be in there for the residency was about 6 weeks long, and I just set up in the cafeteria out at Hampstead, and it was a very lo-fi, very relaxed, sort of welcoming space. You know, everybody there is dealing with so many challenges and lots of life-changing events. So I wanted it to be a really welcoming, safe place for them to explore another part of their lives that didn't have anything to do with rehabilitation or the demands that Hampstead would be placing on them. So we had a small but really engaged group that pretty much did their own thing, and through chatting and laughing and getting a few different materials together, we made some beautiful work. They made some beautiful work.
Yeah, I remember I was very lucky to sit into some of those sessions, and everyone seemed really excited and engaged with what they were doing. And I think having something else to focus on other than that rehabilitation space was really important for them, just to have, for their own peace of mind and things like that, just to have something else to think about.
I think you forget, as a creative person, when you're always making or creating or thinking about it and have a lot of materials and time to do that, I think you forget what a privilege and pleasure it is to be like that. So for a lot of people that have other things in their lives, that 2-hour block or whatever it is such a joy.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of activities did you get them going on, or what kind of things did you do during the sessions?
We just started off with very basic and quite traditional materials, paper and pencils and watercolour paints. One of the patients was a mad photographer, so his source material was always from images that he had brought with him to class or to the session.
Yeah.
And other times it was more just the pleasure of pushing materials around on a surface, without any outcome, just that kind of gestural pleasure and immersing in thinking about colour and really just being together with other people that enjoy those kind of activities.
Oh, fantastic. They were really wonderful sessions, and I enjoyed when I got to sit in on them too. The outcome of that residency was a series of collaborative artworks. It was great. I loved it.
I'm glad.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Can you tell us a bit about the artworks that came out of your residency? They were beautiful collaborative works with a couple of the people in the art sessions. So yeah, how did those artworks come about?
Well, I'd always thought that it would be a collaborative work. I wasn't really sure of the outcome, So it was such a joy when it was ended up being such a successful work. I took some of their drawings. Some of them were whole drawings. Others were I'd edited out sections of their work if it was a more abstracted design. And then I digitally upscaled them and played with them a bit. I flipped them, mirrored them, all sorts of different things. And then we pasted them up into really large, one of them I think was one of the gallery walls 9 meters long.
About that, yeah, it was quite long, yeah.
And then we pasted up with your help and Steph and your beautiful mother. We pasted up that work directly onto the gallery walls, and I think that was a really fun part of the process, because all the residents were walking past and were engaged and intrigued and interested in this different version of what an artwork might look like.
Yeah.
And of course it was huge and very colourful, and the artists had no idea that their work could look like that. They saw it in a whole other light. And I think that metaphor of the paste ups were all A4, so we were tiling it up on the wall, and it was just a really nice energy of those small steps that create these big beautiful images. So it was a really positive experience for everyone, and definitely for me.
Yeah. It was a fantastic experience for me. I loved it, and especially when I saw the artists come along and see their work up in the space, the sense of amazement and pride that they had was really beautiful.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? I think that regardless of anything, that was if that was the best part of the outcome.
Yeah.
And they would tell people as they were walking past that they,
Yes.
I made that work, and it was awesome.
No,
really
it was
wonderful.
fantastic. It really was. And great fun pasting them up. I just really lots of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for your help.
No, thank you for letting me be involved. It was a great way to get out of the office.
I thought it was a really interesting outcome too, that while they were up, and they were up for quite a while, some of the patients that perhaps were having trouble navigating this new space where they were living found a very good guide that they had to turn left where the sunflowers were, or, you know, they used that as a tool for navigating this little world that they were in for a while too. So that was a really interesting outcome.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And you do notice that going through the halls of Hampstead, that there's a lot of traffic and people doing their physio, walking up and down, and it does help them to remember where they are and where they're going and what point they have to turn. So it's a really interesting outcome of the artwork being there, that it really helps them with that physical and rehabilitation purposes as well, which is a great other aspect to having the artwork up in the halls, I think, which is wonderful. Yeah. So recently I saw another wonderful collaborative work that titled Good News Bank that you created with fellow artist Nicholas Hannage. How did that work come about? It looked fantastic.
Thank you. Well, Nick and I had collaborated last year on an exhibition at Praxis, and we just worked really well together. You know, I think maybe we're perceived as a bit of an odd couple, but our practices and the way we approach things is very, very aligned, and you know, we just work well together. And when lockdown came and COVID arrived and everyone was feeling very isolated, I'd been just talking about different what we could do, and we'd always had this running, it was a joke, but it was also quite a serious thing about exposure coin for artists, where our pay was so low that we got paid in exposure coin. So we devised the Good News Bank and printed all our own money. And so we spent a few days at the Goose together, very socially distanced printmakers, and we made lino cuts and silk screened, and we made gazillions of dollars of exposure coin, and we printed calico sacks and stuffed all of this money into the sacks, and then anonymously with a letter that had our letterhead on it, the Good News Bank's letterhead, we anonymously delivered it to about 12 different institutions around Adelaide that we thought might need an extra bit of help during this troubled time.
This is fantastic. I'm sure it brought a big smile on everyone's faces that received that. I just love that initiative. I think it's beautiful.
It was mostly well received, but I think, you know, you make art for yourselves, even though our intent was to spread joy and kindness. For us, it was a really wonderful thing to do, just to spend a few days together in the studio, pretty much just laughing and working very hard, because we printed a lot of this money. It was just a really fun project.
Fantastic. Okay, great. I loved it when I saw it. Just to step back, I'll just let everyone know the Goose is a wonderful artist-run exhibition and studio space called the Floating Goose in the Adelaide CBD. So if you hear us refer to the Goose, it's not a random animal, it's a studio space.
Yes, sorry about that. It's
no,
very
it's fine.
the Goose.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so you've mentioned COVID, and so far 2020 has brought a lot of challenges with the bushfires and now COVID-19. Do you think the role of artists and arts and health has changed in light of these events?
I think that it has always been there, but of course now I think a lot more people are realising that it's everything. Art is everything, and even if you don't recognise it as such, at the moment when we are limited with what we can do and see, you know, we're reading books, we're watching movies, we're tapping into all of these art forms that we perhaps take for granted.
Yeah,
you know, I think
absolutely.
It's been a really wonderful, and cooking and making, a lot of people are tapping into crafts and arts that they've never tried before. Now they've got time. So definitely think it's more important than ever. And it's just shows how it stands up and is so integral to our well-being.
Absolutely. It really is. Definitely.
I mean, we know that, but it's great that that the whole globe is tapping into and recognising that.
Everyone's engaging with the arts in some way, shape or form, and it's been a huge lifeline for people, even if it's just watching the TV or listening to something or reading or anything. Absolutely. So how have the restrictions around COVID-19 affected you? And now they're starting to ease. How are you moving forward?
At the Floating Goose, we made a decision to stop our exhibiting program. We have a gallery at the front of the space. Yeah. So that took a bit of working through, like a lot of other people have had to do. We decided that we wouldn't go to work in our studios in the very beginning. So I was working from home. I was really not working very much at all. I didn't really know what to do or just processing everything, I think, like a lot of people. So I was watching a lot of television, not reading any books, doing a lot of cooking, and just keeping connected with a few friends. Now, of course, we're back in the studio, which is great. So, I'm in there every day working.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned, we've spoken about the Good News Bank, but how else were you keeping creative while the restrictions were in place? Were you working on any other projects or just basically getting in the kitchen and cooking a lot? Or
No, I did go back to, I've been making work here at home, mainly clay, because it just, it's on the kitchen table. It's an easier place to make that kind of thing. Yeah. And I've also been connected with a group of printmakers that are all around the world, some friends of mine that I met a few years ago, and we've kept very close. Fantastic. So we've been having these fantastic Zoom workshops where every couple of weeks one of us will present a workshop. And brilliant. So it's India, South Africa, Spain, the UK, and the US. And so I've been doing some stop animation, woodblock printing, all sorts of things. That's fantastic. So that's been really fun. We've all been doing things that we perhaps wouldn't normally be doing as well. That's wonderful. A really great way to engage with new mediums and processes as well, just to get, fantastic. Yeah, it's great to see their faces and see that they're all okay, because of course, here in Australia we're so lucky, and you only need to talk to a few other countries to firsthand to realise that as well. So it's just good to see their faces and see that they're okay. See that they're okay, absolutely. Especially when it was so uncertain for so long. It was nice. It would have been nice to have that connection. Yeah, fantastic. So just to finish off, can you speak briefly about the work of another artist or community group who's doing positive work at the moment? Well, I feel like there's so many that are out there doing great things. Globally, I think with Instagram, such a great platform for accessing a lot of, like I was talking about, workshops, or people are offering so many free services during this time that normally they wouldn't, and I just love that generosity of spirit of artists. I know Alice Potter has been making hundreds of beautiful heart brooches. Yes. I've got one on, and just posting them out with a little note saying, keep going, and this is all my love to you. And I feel that has been a really inspiring and wonderful work as well. Yeah, that's beautiful. The generosity and just the engagement with all different people reaching out has been just so fantastic. I think there's been a lot more sharing, and just making sure everyone's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's wonderful. There are a lot of examples out there, definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I know that's just one of them that I
And
thought
it's
of. But,
beautiful
yeah.
one. It is a good one. I really, really love that one.
Yes.
Yes. So that brings us to the end of our conversation. Thank you, Cassie, and everyone else for joining us today. If you have any questions or if you're looking for further information about the Centre for Creative Arts programs or our In Conversation series, check out our website and social media platforms. But for now, that's...
Thanks a lot, Fee. So lovely to talk to you.
Thanks, Cassie. Thank you so much. And that's everything for now. So goodbye. Thank you.